Welcome to Down the Garden Path. I'm your host, Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and plant lover. I enjoy discussing down to earth tips and advice to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. And I also aim to bring you interesting and relevant topics to educate you all about the landscaping and horticultural industry. Hello there, and welcome to Down the Garden Path. Thank you for joining me. I'm very excited once again to have Dawn Golloher, the owner and operator of Gardens Plus, an independent garden center in Peterborough, Ontario, back with me. Her garden center specializes in easy care perennials, and there is no more easy care perennial than the hosta, right? The ever popular hosta. If everyone has one in their garden. But today we are going to talk about Hosta Virus X. And I know it sounds scary, doesn't it? So welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you.
So this has been kind of talked about in the background for the last few years. Is it becoming more of a concern, or is it, how can we explain it to our listeners?
I don't know. I think it's being more put out education wise, and
Hmm.
that's why people are talking about it, kind of like saying finally, because in
Okay.
1996 is when it was discovered.
Wow.
And literally, it was someone that was breeding hostas and fooling around trying to come out with new breeds. And then this streaky one came, and there are healthy streaky ones, but this one, basically, they determined that it was a virus. And this was a brand new virus. Don't know where it came from, don't know how it was developed.
Okay.
And then when I was part of the founding members of the Hosta Society, Ontario Hosta Society, and that was back in like 97, 98. Back then we knew about it. And I know for myself, whenever I did talks on Hosta, I always included the educational component about the virus.
Mm,
Um, it's out there. It's the big thing is to be able to recognize what it is,
okay.
what it looks like.
Okay.
Be cautious about where you're buying your plants. If you are buying hostas, I would actually ask wherever you're buying them from if they can guarantee that they're Hosta Virus X free, because there's not a lot of wholesale growers or retailers that will guarantee that.
Well, wholesale, they don't really guarantee anyway, right?
They don't, but they should be more serious about where they buy their plants. And I know
Okay.
personally, I've been to a wholesaler in the landscape community, and I brought it to two of them, and I brought it to their attention because I was
Ah,
purchasing things from them. Now they're basically X'd off my list. I will never buy a hosta from them, but now
right.
they're more aware of what it is, and they know where they got the product. I know
Okay.
where they got the product. Yeah, so
Okay.
hopefully if there's a pushback, and people are more, if they're not buying hostas where they're on the shelves that have the virus, it'll be more seriously, more, looked at more carefully.
And is the issue coming from the grower or the garden center or the wholesaler, or is it also, I would think, because people share hostas, they're constantly because they need to be divided. So,
All of the above. Yeah.
yeah.
So, um, how the plants are treated in the growing stage, I'll say the propagation stage from the growers, the wholesalers, first stage, right, where they come from. So a lot of the newer varieties are actually in tissue culture. It's another whole conversation, but that's how
Okay.
they're propagated. And without being able to get hostas by tissue culture, we wouldn't have all these new varieties. Like there's thousands of varieties.
Yeah.
And so tissue culture is safe. And those growers that do it that way, their product is, I'll say, fairly clean. It can still get
Okay.
contaminated because some of them field grow as well. But you'd have to have a specimen with the virus. And how the virus spreads, it's the sap in the plant, sap in the
Ooh.
leaves, sap's also in the roots. So
Okay.
once you have a plant, say it has a broken leaf, or you divide it with a knife,
Mhm.
then you can actually spread it from one plant to the other. But if you're
Okay, so
starting
if
with
it's
a
standalone
crop,
in the garden, like if it's standalone, happy, is not moving, you're not, it's fine.
it's fine unless, let's just say, Mr. Lawn cutter comes by and he nips the edge of a hosta and it has
Mhm.
the virus. This is the bad part. And it hasn't shown the signs yet that it has the virus.
Oh,
And then it
no.
touches the whole row. Or then he goes to do fall cleanup, because a lot of them do it in the fall, and they cut when the hostas just start to look bad. They don't wait until they're totally mush with the frost or wait till the spring.
Yeah.
They do them, I'm going to say prematurely, but they have a
Yes.
lot of clients to do. I get it. I
Yeah.
actually did this talk on Hosta Virus X to Landscape Ontario, which was an honor that they asked me to do the talk. Like, that's
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
phenomenal. But anyway, so I did it in one of their workshops this spring in March. And the big thing about the landscapers and home gardeners and people that are slicing up their plants to sell at the
Plant
local
sale
work
garden.
societies or put at
Yeah.
the end of their driveway or whatever, is clean your tools in between each plant. So if plant
Okay.
A has the virus and you've cleaned your tools, so I'm talking about like an antiseptic wipe, drip it in some bleach and water, anything like that to disinfect the knife between each plant. So if plant A, you divide it or cut it back, whatever you're doing with it, it has the virus, but you've cleaned your tool. Then when you go to plant B, C, and some of us have hundreds of them, or I have thousands of them, I'm not going to disinfect. So even though I don't have it here on the property, um,
Hmm.
I still treat every plant like it could have it, just because this is my livelihood, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and the other thing is people say, so how can I know if it has the virus? Well, it can take 6 to 7 years for it to show the signs of the virus, which is scary.
Wow.
But there's three things. So one is ink bleeding. The
Ink
other is
bleeding.
mottled tissue, and the other is collapsed tissue. So ink bleeding is basically if you look at a leaf of a plant and the veins have a different color. Normally it's a blue or a darker color. And it's not normal. That's not what the tag looks like. That's not what the pictures look like on the internet. That's ink bleeding. And that's a very sure sign that it has the virus.
Okay.
The next is mottled tissue, and that's more like blotchiness. Now, blotchiness is a little harder to determine if it's the virus or not, because some people use a lot of nurseries use a lot of different fertilizers and stuff. So you could get that mottled tissue from deficiencies with different fertilizers,
Yeah.
something in the water by mistake.
Isn't
Maybe
that also a characteristic of some of the newer hostas that they've got like an interesting like color
so
palette?
streakiness is definitely a new phase. I know myself, I was going to bring in one, it was called, oh my gosh, what was it called? Like King Emperor or something like that.
Okay.
Emperor, anyways, brand new. From the grower, they offered it to me. They're not offering it to a lot of people, but they were small plants, which I don't like to buy small. And then I kept looking at it and it's so unique, but you know what? It looks like it's got the virus. So I don't
Oh,
really want to have it on my shelves because I feel like I would have to have a conversation if anybody saw it, or I should
yeah.
have a conversation so they don't think that Gardens Plus has the virus here. So I
Right.
actually canceled that order and everybody obviously scooped it up right after I canceled that particular plant. So yeah, there's some out there called London Fog, um, Elegant Fog. There's a whole bunch of different ones that actually have that streakiness, and even the poorest hosta out there called White Feather, that's white in the spring. When it starts turning to green, it actually looks like it has the virus. So in those
Okay.
kinds, it's hard to tell.
Hmm.
I'd say modeling tissue it's definitely blotchiness and it's very obvious apparent. The other is collapsed tissue. Now this one, collapsed tissue basically means that it looks like it has either like too much moisture or you've sucked the moisture out of the leaf. But in the spring when they start coming up, and I know here I'm 5B, I'm in Peterborough, just east of Peterborough. Our hostas aren't even showing eyes yet. But when they
Hmm.
do start to come up, when they come up in May. If we get a hard frost, it'll damage the leaves. So this is the big part with collapsed tissue that can be confusing. How to eliminate the confusion is if it's leafed out and we get a frost and it's only the outside leaves that seem to be damaged, it's probably frost damage. It's not. I don't want people ripping out their hostas because they have frost damage.
Right.
And ripping out the hosta, we'll come back to that, how you actually remove if you have it and how you can test. So frost damage is a big thing that can break down the cells in your leaves. Normally, again, they're on the outside of the plant because the outside leaves protect the inside leaves. So if you have a hosta, the outside leaves look damaged or collapsed tissue, cut them off, clean your knife before and after, or whatever you're using, your sucketeers or whatever, and then just kind of look at that plant and make sure that anything new coming from the center doesn't look like that. In most cases, you're going to have more than one leaf that's going to show this effect.
Okay.
So if you have ink bleeding, it's not going to be just one leaf. It's going to be a few leaves. It might not be every leaf, but by removing those leaves doesn't mean that the plant isn't infected. The plant is still infected. The whole plant needs to go.
Okay.
So
now why? Like if it's, if it takes 6, 7 years to show, and if we're being careful about cleaning, our utensils and stuff, what is the risk of Hosta virus? Like, is there a risk to humans or a risk to other plants?
To every single hosta in your garden, there's a risk that you would have the virus and it would just keep spreading. Especially, but yeah, if you're careful and you just remove that one plant and you know that you've been clean and vigilant about cleaning your tools, you know where you've got all your different hostas. The sad thing is say, we talk about hosta number A, B, and C. Let's keep saying A has the hosta. Let's say A hasn't shown the signs and you're not careful. Now B, which you just bought last year, where you got it, it shows the hosta. Well, it might show the hosta virus sooner than the one that actually infected it. So that part is hard. Like that, you can never sometimes know exactly where you got it. A lot of people don't keep track of where they buy their hostas. And again, if your initial one that's actually feeding the virus through your garden isn't showing the signs yet, but the other ones are showing symptoms faster. If you look on the internet, under Hosta Library, that's where a lot of the really good information, great pictures, great source of information for every single thing about it. It talks about how it was discovered in 1996. But they'll talk on there about a lot of the ones that are very commonly seen in the garden centers being affected, because they're the ones that were noticed first. So striptease, Sum and Substance, Gold Standard. Really? I have all of those here and they're all clean. So it doesn't mean that every one of that, but that's the problem with the confusion part, right?
Right.
There's a lot of confusion about. I've had Gold Standard here for, this is my 27th season. I've probably had it here for 25 years because it's one of the original classics I brought in. Striptease, love the name, haha.
I know. And it's a cool plant. It's a cool one.
It's very unique. It's got a really wide gold center and the meandering little white line and then the green. So it's one that they say it's prone to it. Well, when I bought my stock, I bought, I don't know, maybe 100. And I just take sort of so many every year off and put them for sale. And mine's clean. How I know mine's clean is I invested in, there's basically a immuno strip. So it's just like now we're all used to doing the strips with the COVID.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that, but it's not, it's a stick. So it's actually a stick and you get a plastic little square inside we'll say it's almost like a Ziploc. Inside the Ziploc on one side is like gauze. And then there's a solution in there. And then on the other side, there's this little spot where you would stick the strip in. So what you do is you take a quarter-size leaf, you put it in the gauze side, and then you use scissors or a knife or something like that, and then you scrape on the leaf, and it gets the sap to go into the solution. And then you just take the stick, and there's a right way and a wrong way. You put it down, and if it gives you one line, the test is viable. If it gives you 2 lines, your hosta has the virus.
very much like COVID, right? Like
Exactly like
yeah.
COVID. The only difference is you can't just go to your pharmacy and get them.
Okay.
There's a company in now in Canada, which is nice because originally I had to get it from the source, which was in the US. It's AGDIA, and they're in London, Ontario. But these tests, if you buy like 25, they work out to about $6 or $7 each.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
they're expensive. I always have them on hand because it's my, it's my,
Livelihood.
livelihood. I need to make sure that if I have anything
Yeah.
suspect, I will just test. Yeah, and then if you bought only 5, they're like $10 each. So, but it's nice if maybe, a group of people, if they are serious and they want to know, they can buy some tests together.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just sign up for an account on their website and you can buy the tests. How to remove them is, so let's say you have a huge summon substance and it's showing the signs. You definitely don't want to do any cutting or anything to the leaves unless it's kind of like standalone. If it's standalone and you have a bunch of shrubs or grasses or any other plant around that's not a hosta, because it doesn't affect other plants,
Okay.
I would just either put a string around the whole big, once it's leafed out and whatever, put a string around it and tie it, and then put a garbage bag over it. And then dig it out, try to get all the roots that you can, because remember the sap's in the roots.
Okay.
And then actually leave it in the garbage bag to mush. Don't compost it because there's the spread, right? So how many people have went to their green waste and taken hostas that have the virus and we're buying the dirt? If it's not to the right temperature and all that stuff, that's another way it could spread.
Yeah.
The lawnmower, the tools, not right. And then so you let that, mush up, dry up, make sure it's, good and dead and whatever. And then I would literally try to get rid of it in some way that's burning it. Definitely not compost, not grain waste, not, you know what I mean? You need to like literally, or maybe the dump, like
Yeah, like a garbage, like you should do with dog strangling vine. I say that too. Like, nope, everybody gets rid of their dog strangling vine. Well, they think they're getting rid of it, whatever. They're trying to get rid of it, and then they put it in their brown bags, and it's like, no, then that's going into like we're just spreading it, right? And the municipal mulch. So garbage bag, the dog strangling vine goes in the garbage. So would that be the same? The Hosta virus goes to then it goes to the dump, but
yeah, it's not going to spread through the dump because it's not like the dump ever turns over their earth and sells it back to us as gardeners, right? Yeah. If it's really small, lots of people that are really serious about it, first year they'll leave their hostas in a pot and then just sink them in the ground in the fall. But again, it sometimes takes several years to show the virus, so that really isn't still that safe. I still think that obviously, just be careful where you buy them. Make sure they can guarantee that they're buying from these suppliers that are guaranteeing them. There's some suppliers I can buy from. They're very reasonable. The prices are unbelievably reasonable. But they're guaranteeing me that only up to 5% would have the virus. Well, I want 0. I don't want 5%. So I might buy plants from these growers, but I won't buy hosta.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Now, will it eventually kill your hostas? Like, so, okay, let's say you do nothing or you don't know you have it. And, there's some people that have lots of, hostas and you don't know you have it. Will it eventually kill them or are they just failure to thrive?
Yeah, I've never either or. It's just the discoloration and it's affected and it can affect all your other plants. So you buy a big summon
other hostas though, other hostas.
Other hostas, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So for summon substance, it's chartreuse, it's bright, it's beautiful, it's big, and then all of a sudden it's all blotchy and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then burning, some people see things and they look like they're burnt. Well, normally that's too much sun. So that's it's nothing to do with the virus. That's just placing your hostas in full sun. They will grow like crazy. But by the time we get to July or August, when it gets hot and people aren't, watering them every day, because you shouldn't have to do that because they don't require that, but they require that if you put them in the sun. They're not a full sun plant.
They really are not.
So they'll burn. Yeah. And then you'll buy a blue hosta. We have a golf course here and I actually went to, a business meeting or whatever at the golf course. And it's like Halcyon. It's a beautiful blue and it's burnt.
Yeah.
Burnt. It's blue. It's in black mulch. That actually holds heat and attracts heat, especially in the sun. And then the hostas burn. It's supposed to be blue, and it's in full sun. It would look amazing if it was in a different spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Even
And I
just
always try to tell
something like
people that,
that.
yeah, they might like live in the sun, but there's so many other plants that will do great in the sun
Thrive.
that
Yeah.
there's no, there's no sense in putting it in the sun. Like there's like lots of other, you feel bad for the shade people who have more limited options. Oh, there's Kitty. You have more limited options, reserve it for the shade, the part shade where things, dry, where it won't, where nothing else, there's less options, well, not no options, but there's less options, and leave the sun to the full sun plants because
That's right.
it just makes for, again, low maintenance. I say in my talk about low maintenance gardens, it really is the right plant in the right spot, right? I mean, I know
Yeah.
there's easy care perennials, but still, if you put an easy care perennial like a hosta in the full sun, it's no longer an easy care perennial.
Exactly. Exactly. And then when you think about the sun, okay, so full sun, what happens to that bed compared to the full shade? It heats up faster in the spring because it's getting more sun. So then what happens is your hostas emerge way before they should. And then they do get frost. It's a snowball of problems
Yeah.
that could emerge, hence when they emerge, right? That you wouldn't have if they were actually in their proper place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And east is not full sun. A lot of people, so what's full sun? Because it's full sun there in the morning. Full sun in the morning is just part sun because it's only in the morning, right?
Morning.
That's that whole thing about even like it's basic for somebody like you and I in a sense, but it's got to watch your area because like we talked before about, the trees and all that kind of stuff. But I love the east because it's enough sun for a lot of things like daylilies and, full sun loving things because you get that 6 hours, 7 hours sometimes, but it's enough, you get that shade after 1 or 2 that your hostas are still okay.
Yes, yeah, but because it's that hot afternoon sun, right?
Yeah, that's the worst.
That,
Yeah, 12
that
till
can be,
4. Whew. Yeah.
can be very intense.
Yeah.
So back to the virus. So I know most people, I mean, people certainly buy and invest in new hostas every year, but like I said, there's people that will put them, bag of hostas to their curb or, or a box of hostas, and people will come and just take them. So is there something like, if that's the case, if you are sharing or a garden club, plant sales, that type of thing, or, there's the, Facebook free hostas, is there something that, well, should, aside from don't do it, don't get them from there, is there something like, do the roots in that situation give off any more sign than the leaves? No, right? So there's
None
no,
at all. Unfortunately, none. The only way is these 3 attributes to the virus or doing a test to be 100% sure.
okay.
But if that's the case, and I understand that, everyone needs to save money these days. So,
Yeah.
watch the websites, look at the prices and all that kind of stuff. And if you can pick up something unusual or neat or filling a spot or whatever from Marketplace or whatever it is, just be careful, not put them near any of your treasures at home, maybe keep them segregated for a while. And then still just clean your tools between when you're
Yeah.
cleaning them up or you're dividing your own or whatever. That's fairly easy to do. I mean, everybody has those wipes at home.
I
I
know
know
it's so
I do.
funny. It's very basic, but I have to admit, very rare, and I know I've said that to people too with even black knot or any, even I think the only time I might have done it was like powdery mildew, right, on 9 bark, which then I only put up with for a year or 2, and then I take out the plant, right? Because I have no patience or time to deal with high maintenance things.
Yes.
But yes, it is a basic, like even if you had a bottle of like diluted bleach and water, right, in your garage, and then you were just spraying and then wiping off, if you didn't want to invest in the wipes, or if you've
Yeah.
gone all through your COVID supply of wipes, you can just do that, right? And
Yeah.
like your knife, even if you're cutting off diseases of other things, it is always better to use clean pruners and clean knives and clean tools. So and I'm guilty of that because like my bag for on the road, like it stays in the car, all those tools, like I've got my garage tools for my garden, and then I've got the tools, for other people's gardens. So after the show, I'm going to have to go out and clean all those.
I know. And it's like, you don't want to make everybody panicky or, but at the same time, if everybody knows about it, like you can go to a garden center after listening to this talk and looking it up maybe, and then you go, oh my gosh, and then you're telling the garden center about it because that's happened, right? Even on Facebook, I mean, obviously Gardens Plus is a member. I'm a member personally. And I have pictures in some of the talks that I do, which are obviously a lot more visual, which is a little easier to show. But and I'll send you some images. Maybe you can attach on the.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and it was if it was in the season, you could have brought leaves and we could have done video kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Except for I wouldn't have any. If somebody actually, and that's a funny point because people have emailed me and whatever. Can I show you this? And I'm like, okay, wash your hands. Sorry, put it in a Ziploc bag. Right? I don't want any leaves here that are diseased, but if they put it in a Ziploc bag and then I hand them a wipe when they show up, like I'm really, on it or whatever. But anyways, it's so on Facebook there's been pictures. There's a site called Hosta ID. So it's pretty strict, but they want, the base of the plant because some of the hostas have the red petioles and the red stems and they want to know, the size. So they need something to judge the size. And then obviously a picture of a couple different shots and then the leaf. And there's a way that you can identify hostas by even counting the leaf, the veins in a leaf, if you really want to know everything that you have. Wow. But there's been people on there that have posted clearly 100% virused hosta, right? Wow. And then we have to tell them, I'm so sorry, like this is such and such hosta, but it has the virus. And then you get into a big, long, hundreds of comments, and then people, that's how they learn, which is good that people talk about it. It's not that we want to be all, you need to talk about it. You need to educate. You need to know what it is. And then even at hort societies where often they do the flower arranging and bringing in your tulips and your daffodils or whatever.
Flower shows,
the flower shows. Thank you. They would bring in hosta leaves and do a whole vase of beautiful, all these different hosta varieties, which is great. It's educating that there's more than green and white, right? And plain blue. But there's a vase right on Facebook. It looked beautiful, but there was 3 leaves that were clearly. And when she cut these leaves for the vase, did she use the same, or did they use the same scissors? Did they use the same, right? That's how.
If only that virus could only attack the green and white one that is so, so can we get that one out of here?
It's so plain. But, it makes a good hedge.
But the slugs love it, and it looks, it definitely doesn't do great in the more than a little bit, a little bit of sun, and it's not my favorite. And I feel like that hosta was like the first big hosta, first as a homeowner when I was younger, and it was like. And so then that kind of made me hesitant with other hostas because it's like, oh, I'm so tired of looking at that hosta, and it kept reproducing, right? They get bigger and bigger. And I think it is good. Sorry to segue now. Because some hostas, like especially some of the newer, larger, interesting breeds or varieties, are not cheap.
No.
So
that's right.
I always try to be get as interesting as I can within a reasonable budget when I'm buying for clients, right? I'm not buying and giving them a $40 hosta.
No.
But I think it would be a shame if people are spending that much money on hostas and then, sharing a virus with their friends or getting it themselves. So
That's right. And I would say, I would hope that the ones that are, above even $20 are coming from a supplier that is guaranteeing these nurseries, etc., that they're virus free, and that's why they are that price. Because I know, what I mean. The one that I don't buy from anymore, I can buy a lot of varieties from them, but I go to my go-to one that says 100%, and they test and blah blah blah, and so the price point, I'm probably paying wholesale about double, but my markup actually isn't as much as some of the other ones. But so my high-end new ones that come out, they're 15 to, I think the highest one is $24.95.
Yeah.
I don't carry the $40 ones. The ones that come right out off the hop, they have to be pretty different.
Yeah.
Really different
after that, like you said, there's thousands now. It's really getting hard to be really original. I think the strip tees, to me, it's the leaf type, not the color. Like the strip tees, the curly fries, those ones that to be honest, don't really look like a hosta. Those are the ones I
Yeah.
kind of gravitate to, right? Because they're
Yeah,
like, is
yeah.
that, and that stuff makes people stop in the garden. Like, is that a grass? Is that a hosta? No, what is that? Like I love that.
There's
in it.
Party Streamers is a new one, and it
Oh,
was new like 3 years ago, I think.
I
And
didn't
it's
see that.
even thinner leaved than curly fries.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's a blue one. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name. Oh, so Party Streamers is gold. And then there's one that's almost exactly the same, but it's blue, same thin leaves. Yeah, they just make
Mm,
such a really nice clump once they mature.
yeah,
Yeah, they're so
yeah.
cool.
That
Yeah,
is
I can't think of the blue
interesting.
one's name.
Yeah. So have you do you like you're part of the Hosta Society? Like, is there a plan? Is anybody working on a treatment, or is this something that people are thinking is just gonna
I don't, yeah, about the
continue?
treatment, I have no idea. Basically, it's
Mm-hmm.
just remove. It's just,
Okay.
that's, they're saying the
Remove and
easiest way,
dispose.
just remove and dispose. Yeah, and dispose properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you see it, don't be shy to,
Point it
and
out.
this is interesting. So I'm glad we're talking about this again. So there was a situation. Oh my gosh. I spoke to I think it was the Oshawa Club.
Mm-hmm.
There was a girl there, and she was a customer of mine already. So she would already drive to Peterborough to get stuff. And I can't remember how, I think it was when I came back to talk to Oshawa again, which was like 5 years later. And this is going back. Like, I haven't talked to the Oshawa Club probably for like 10 years. Like, this was a long
Okay.
time ago, right? So, anyways, so I think her name's Sandra, but it doesn't matter. So then she stood up at the end when people were asking extra questions and stuff and having a conversation. And she said, I went to, because of your talk, the first talk, now whenever I see it at, sorry, it's mostly big box stores, I'll tell somebody. And then they'll just say, well, whatever. Or sometimes
Yeah.
they'll say this or that or whatever. And then she'll, because she's really strong about it and she loves hosta, she'll stand and make sure that somebody comes and then they take it. And she'll follow and make sure that they dispose of them in the garbage, not the compost
Mm,
with the other plants. Because a lot of plants just go to compost. Somebody picks them up and,
yeah.
the city compost them or whatever. So yeah, so the thing is if you do see it at the garden center and they look at you like, what are you talking about? That's kind of scary because that same virus hosta might break down and be in their soil next year. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's got to be full circle, and it's hard for a consumer to bring it to the attention of a garden center because they should know. But the thing is, they can't know everything about everything.
Right.
And you're
Right.
saying, 9-bark, yeah, they need to be pruned and airy so they don't get there's,
Do.
but they can't know everything about
Yeah.
everything. They can't. And
Yeah.
they do annuals, perennials, shrubs, trees,
Yeah.
soil, right?
Yeah.
I know what I grow because I don't grow any of that. I just do
Right.
easy care perennials. So
Easy
it's
care
easy for me to
perennials.
keep on top of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that is the challenge with the big box stores and the stores that just bring that stuff in the summer, right? For a couple of
Yeah,
months.
yeah,
Grocery stores do it now, and because their staff are just, they're the cashiers from inside, working outside, just trying to be a cashier and water some plants,
yeah.
they
And they're
don't
passionate
have the
about gardening.
expertise.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it all goes back to so many things of you get what you pay for, right?
yeah,
Same with landscaping projects, same with your plants, same with your trees. There's no such thing as a great deal because you don't know what you're getting, and you don't know how it's going to grow. So I think this is a really good lesson too, because hostas are so popular and it's been around a long time, and it's funny that it's still not really talked about that much.
that's right.
So I
Yeah,
would love those photos, and I definitely will include those in the show notes.
yeah,
But it is another reason to practice good gardening hygiene.
yeah,
um,
exactly.
Absolutely. And it's as simple, like I said, of like a container of wipes nearby, or having like a spray bottle of bleach and a cloth, and you just wiping things down. Then you can really prevent a lot of bad things from happening, really, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
do we know, just a few more questions, is it prone to like a certain leaf color? Like, are the blues more prone to it, the greens more? No, there's no consistent.
No, it's a
You
little
can't see
easier.
Dawn shaking her head.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a video.
Yeah.
So you see it easier on the golds because the
Oh, okay.
blotching, the ink bleed would show up like more. I
Okay.
think that, if we think about it being a blue hosta with ink bleed and the ink bleed is just darker on the veins, I don't think you're going to see it as easily.
Mm,
But yeah, no, it's not prone to any specific hosta. They just keep seeing it on certain varieties more than others. Um, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, is there
You're
anything
welcome.
else you want to share with our listeners? You're opening soon, but not yet.
Yeah, so we're still aiming for Mother's Day weekend because that's normally what we do. I know that the spring, a lot of things are ahead, but with all these damp weather days and
Hmm.
stuff, just if you're interested in coming to visit us, for the hostas, it'd be sort of by then anyways, like it's Mother's Day weekend. I'd say the last 2 weeks of May are best for hosta selection.
Yeah.
For everything else we pretty much have when we open, like hellebores we talked about not too long ago. We just did
Hmm.
a podcast on that. They're early, obviously, they're available right away. So we'll post on our Facebook page and on
Okay.
our website if we open the weekend before, but I don't think we're going to. We'll see.
Yeah.
I look
Yeah.
at the overnight temperatures, like I look at when it's best planting weather for the customers, and I'm
Hmm.
sort of catering to that 5B area. I know that I do
Yeah.
have a lot of customers who will come for 2 or 3 hours away, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's what, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
you got to
aiming for.
pick a spot kind of thing. And it is,
Yeah.
and with all the rain, one of my tips that I often talk about is, and so okay, today it stopped raining. Yesterday it rained quite a bit. Um, Getting out there in the garden and compressing your soil, whether it's your lawn, whether it's your garden, yes, you technically can do it, but you're really not doing your garden any favor because then when the next rain comes, that water just runs right off. So
That's
you
the fun
really have
part,
to
yeah.
think about that. Like, it's great that it got a long rain the last couple of days and it's penetrated and the plants needed it because they didn't have the snow all winter. So we certainly need the moisture. The trees need it. But you are doing your garden in the future in the July heat, July and August drought, a disservice because you've just compressed and made your soil all patted down and unless you weigh 50 pounds, like you know what I mean, like you just are not. It's not doing, yes, you're not necessarily harming the plants, but what are you doing to the ground? And for next rains, you're just going to see, and I think people don't realize that with their lawns. And I know if you've got little kids, yes, you got to let the kids out to play, but there's no need to kind of get out there and do a lot with your lawn yet. Just let it go and let the rain kind of saturate it, and so you're
Yeah.
not creating that surface where it just runs off. So that's just a not a Hosta virus tip, but
Oh
that's
no, but it's so
another.
important and timely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it really
for
is. It
sure.
really is. Thank you so much, Dawn. And I'm here anytime you want to come back. If you got another topic, I know you're about to enter your busy season, but if you see something happening or a plant that's flying off the shelves that you want to talk about, I'd love to have you join me again anytime.
Sounds
I just
good.
love our conversations, and I hope to be out this year to visit you as well again. So yes. So
Perfect.
thank you once again for joining me on Down the Garden Path. Please check out her nursery out in Peterborough. All the information will be in our show notes, and Dawn's got an excellent website, so you can even do, your scouting of plants before you even get there. So that's exciting. I want to mention that this episode is brought to you also by Down the Garden Path, or sorry, Down to Earth Landscape Design, as I am a landscape designer. And I focus on Durham region in Ontario, but I am able to do virtual designs as well. So you can reach out to me for that. So thank you everyone once again for joining me down the garden path, and we'll see you next week. Bye.